13 years. A lot has changed in 13 years. Think about where you are in 2006. Think about how old you were, the things that you were doing, the fact that we've gone through essentially 3 presidents in that time frame. Bush, Obama, and now Trump. Think about the fact that 4,868 days ago, the last Tool album was formally released to stores here in the United States. 4,868. I actually gave you a bad number in the 10,000 Days review. That would have been at the album that was released 2 months ago, at the end of June. And well, we wouldn't be talking about it now, because that would be in the past. 4,868. There's no 7s in there. That'll become relevant later. But that's more than all of the cumulative days that Bruno Sammartino was WWF champion. And he was a champion for 8 damn years in one of his run. It's a long time. It's a really, really long time. So how do we approach 2019's most anticipated album, perhaps the most anticipated album for an entire generation of Tool fans that have been waiting for more than a decade, nearly a decade and a half, to hear what the next evolutionary step of Tool was going to be? How do we approach this? Well, we got our answer without even really having to consider it all that much whenever the title track, Fear Inoculum, dropped a couple of weeks ago. And whenever this happened, it sort of sent a spiral all throughout what we thought we knew. Because all of a sudden, we started to hear details about this album that was going to have 7 tracks on the version that was available in stores and was going to come with a 4-inch LCD screen or whatever that you were going to be able to watch stuff on, and an extra bonus track on there. But that's what? What also that meant was the fact that there was going to be a digital version. That's right, Tool on digital, Spotify. And that was going to be 7 minutes more worth of music. There's 7 again. For 10 total tracks. So, what does this all mean? And plus, Fear Inoculum, whenever we got it, it was sort of a blended opinion. It was one where there were a lot that loved what this song was able to do, but many that were questioning its sort of slow build, its slow methodicism that's just sort of screamed like it was okay. But the idea was we needed to hear where it was on the album and how it interacted with the tracks that surrounded it. So one of the main reasons why I didn't want to do a track review on it. I wanted to talk about the full product, and plus not confuse those that wanted to see me talk about the album as opposed to just the song. Fear Inoculum, the song, starts off this album. So what you got was your opening stanza to the poetry that you're about to hear with Fear Inoculum. And this song, with its slow build and its eventual crescendo that feels like it's kind of a micro crescendo as opposed to a macro crescendo, it does have a bit of a strange veneer to it. We have those strange bounces that you hear. It almost sounds like a rubber ball that's bouncing against a guitar string. And the reverberations and the vibrations that you're getting from it sound very similar to sounds that you would hear in 1990s DOS video games, or some old toy that has one of those modulators in it that gives you a specific sound if you hit a button or something like that. It's a strange song, and its build is that which feels very slow and methodical. It's a plod, and with this we started to wonder, what's the rest of the album going to sound like? But then you get into Numa, the very next track, and you realize, wait a minute, this is almost the same. We have the same formula that's happening here. We have a song that is starting off with a very slow build, and in this case we have that very muted, very acoustic sounding guitar, and then we have more strange noises that layer over top of it, which is actually kind of cool whenever you think about it, because if you try to count this, you might get something that's divisible by 7. 7, 7, 7. This 11-minute, 52-second long song is able to build upon that same concrete idea of Fear Inoculum. And this is repurposing almost Fear Inoculum, or repurposing the idea. And we get that on a lot of these 5 main tracks. We get a repurposing of the same idea of a slow build going into a big-time crescendo. The difference is when that crescendo hits and how hard it is able to go, or how it's able to affect. And Numa is able to do this with a little bit more effectuality, considering it has a lot more heaviness that is surrounding it. Maynard's voice, though, on this, Maynard's voice almost sounds a bit angelic in many ways, which is odd, considering 777, it's an angelic number. Either that or it's, Blue Dust Nord did a whole trilogy on the number. Maybe he should have hooked up with them in order to help out with this disc. I say them, but I know, it's one guy. let it be them. That way there could be another 7 thrown in there somewhere. But we're going into Invisible, and especially into Descending. This is where we start to see the descent of this idea, this repurposing, which is able to still dominate the beginning portions of these songs, but slowly but surely it's starting to come a little bit closer to that beginning where the crescendo starts, where that build begins, where everything starts to amplify up. The guitar solos on here, on these songs, are also something that need to be certainly talked about, considering the distortion and the way in which they are encountered, or where they're encountered. I'll feel like they're slowly descending down from the end of the song to closer to the beginning, because by the time you get to Tempest, by the time you get to the final track on this album, it feels like it's just a full blown out guitar explosion. This is one of the heaviest songs that Tool has perhaps ever made. It's a throwback to the old days of Undertow. It's a throwback to those old days where they used to jam out, and Maynard sounds legitimately like that soft angelic tone has now turned devilish, almost as though all of the numbers on this album should not have been located and layered around 7, but instead around 6. But wait, perhaps there is something there. Perhaps there is. But Invisible and Descending, once again, are able to amplify some of those strange little occurrences of strange, weird little noises that have almost a rubbery or a springy approach to them. It's very interesting to hear some of the different aspects on this album and some of the different little things that tend to come up. It's very weird. It's very almost off-putting, but it's also endlessly interesting, and it gets you thinking about what it could possibly all mean, or what the thought process potentially was. Calling Voices then turns everything on its heels. Instead of this being one that has that methodical opening that just, is now thrust into its, big time crescendo conclusion, either that or at least a crescendo that's going to amplify the track up. It spends a lot more time being distant, calling voices, almost like calling them from the void or contacting them from a realm beyond. This album's supposed to be all about acceptance of age and the number 7. But really, whenever I listen to this, I almost think about trying to transmit messages from a void that's far away, such as behind the white noise of a television, or perhaps just trying to do so through astral projection or meditation. This is a song that accurately feels like it combines its wording into actual sound and music. And then you get Chocolate Chip Trip, and this thing is just weird. This is an odd number that definitely takes things into the ambient, the dark ambient, or just the what the fuck were they thinking region, considering this 4-minute and 48-second long song just doesn't feel like it really goes much of anywhere, but that chaos feels as though it has its own prominence, and it has its own real sort of, direction to it, almost as though perhaps everything there has another multiple of 7 that's layered within, and we're seeing how the combination of all of our aspects of aging or knowledge or everything whenever it comes to growing old or growing content or discontent with what you've become or what you may become is now all of a sudden thrust into this cavalcade of noise, this dissonant mess of just whatever. They worked a little bit with Lustmord on this album. I'm not sure how much of that was associated with Chocolate Chip Trip. It's mostly just been associated with water sounds, but I have a feeling that with those two being collaborators in the past, that there might be a little bit of a deeper connection that eventually surfaced with Chocolate Chip Trip. This is an odd song, not to mention the only one on the non-digital version that's purely instrumental. And it's also to note that the 3 tracks that you're going to get with the digital edition that we're not talking about here, because, I like physical stuff, they're all instrumentals as well. They're meant to be sort of bridge gap songs that were really originally envisioned by Adam and the boys, considering they wanted this to be one big long song, and you can kind of see that. Now it's starting to make sense. Now the ebb and flow, the evolution of these songs is beginning to take a little bit of shape, because whenever you look at this as a long song, you can see where those little interludes would provide perspective break. You can understand that those would be what would easily and seamlessly take you from one track to the other, considering there are 2 that are right in the middle of the album and 1 that concludes it after Tempest. It kind of makes sense now. Maybe, just maybe, they were really onto something with this. But that's not the number 7. That would be 10. 10's a really bad number. Tempest, though, is easily, like I said, one of the heaviest songs that Tool has ever produced. It's something that calls back those days of Undertow. It's something where Maynard's voice all of a sudden becomes that savage bringer of the dagger to the, to everything. It has that cut to it, and not to mention, this has soaring solos. This feels like it was made in the 1990s. It was made with a high level of jam interloped with careful calculations and math really laced within it. And it's happening so often in this song that actually whenever it reaches its second half, by that point it feels softer, almost as though they flipped the whole formula right there at the end and tossed it on its heels. Instead of it being a slow build up to the big crescendo, we get the crescendo that then fades away and eventually becomes silent until we reach 1537, the last time that we hear a note on this song before 7 seconds of silence. Many people are going to look at this album and not like it, I think, because of the long song lengths and the fact that there is a lot of repurposing here, where they're repurposing some of the same concepts from a construction standpoint. Some people may not even go that deep and just say that they think it sucks because it doesn't remind them of the glory days of Lateralis or the days of Anima, or should I say Anima, where that album felt like it flowed like a concept, and while this one doesn't exactly have that same river flow associated with it. But this is a disc that, as you listen to it more and more and more, you become really drowned by it. You become awash by it. It takes you down that river, and you are calm. Until you hit Tempest, of course, and then you're just all of a sudden, doing this. And really, whenever you listen to Chocolate Chip Trip, you're doing this. Huh? But wait. There are going to be those that also say that Maynard's voice has started to lose its edge, and instead he sounds a little bit more like that angelic number 777, but I don't think that that's true. Really, there's going to be conspiracy theories abound about this album. What took it so long? But maybe the real conspiracy theory is that the number 7 is not what's truly at work here. Maybe it's instead the number 6. Maybe it's the number 666. Maybe this is a truly evil album. Wait a minute. Wait just a minute. The standard edition of this album, the non-digital one, 79 minutes long. It took 13 years for this album to get here. That's 66. Well, we're 2/3 of the way there. What about... Wait. Chocolate Chip Trip, that's an instrumental song. There's 6 main songs on this disc that have Maynard James Keenan's voice. Maynard James Keenan is not the voice of an angel. It's not 777. It is 666. And Maynard is the devil talking directly to us, reminding us of the concepts of age, using a number very familiar, but also using one that shows trepidation. 666, it's right there. And it's everywhere else too. But what's really cool actually about this, and that conspiracy theory is just for fun, is that the 3 additional songs that you get on the digital version of this album as opposed to the CD release, 7 minutes worth of material. There it is again, 7. You know where else it gets 7? In my score. This is a 27 out of 30, a fantastic album once you get sort of beyond some of the creative repurposing or repackaging that you hear with some of these tracks. Because once you get beyond that concept, once you sort of get past the idea that it seems like they were not being as musically unpredictable, you realize they actually sort of were. Their obsession with the number 7 is littered throughout and scattered throughout the time signatures and the oddball concepts that you get with Fear Inoculum. And Tempest alone, I think, is a perfect ending for this song, or for this album. I don't even want to listen to the piece that comes after it because I feel like it just ends so wonderfully. It may be truly the crowning achievement in Tool's entire discography, which is a high piece of praise considering most of the songs from Tool I love are the longer songs. So maybe that's just me. But I like what this album does, but I don't think it is quite to that level of legendary where it perhaps can stand toe-to-toe and feel like it's within the company of the Valhalla of Anima or Lateralis. It may not have the same big-time vast vision that also felt like it was thrown together like a puzzle that you got with 10,000 Days. It's not as raw. In fact, it's the anti-raw of Undertow for most of its runtime. But that's the thing. That's what makes it cool. It's a very different album. It's very unique. And I like unique. Unique usually appeals to me. That thing that you just heard right out there, that motorcyclist driving past, that ain't unique. That doesn't impress me. I hear that every single day, and it does the same thing to me each day. It pisses me off. But whenever I hear something unique, I all of a sudden get my curiosity piqued. My curiosity was very piqued by Fear Inoculum. Many months ago, I stated that this album could potentially be a huge letdown, and for many, it may be exactly that. But for myself personally, I find myself continuing to go back to it. I found myself having to tear myself away from this album, which I've been listening to since I first got it at 9 o'clock this morning, to post this video. To record it, to render it, to get it out to you guys. That way you know exactly what's going on. Here we are at 5 p.m. Well, at least in the Eastern time, And the first thing I want to do after I stop recording here is listen to it again. Because every time I do, I find something a little bit different with it. What do you think about Fear Inoculum by Tool? Is it the work of angels or the work of the devil? Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time, but I leave you with just one question. 4,868 days. Was it worth the wait?